Hello, fans of Courage, Confidence, Connections podcast. I'm Janice Debo. I'm your host today. I have a wonderful guest, and we've never met face to face. So, this is our first time meeting. This is going to be the most free flowing, spontaneous podcast you can imagine. So, welcome, Donna. This is Donna Chisholm okay, you're just going to tell me the name of your business. It just went over my head. So, go ahead.
That's
Let's go.
okay. It's Connected Coaching. The website is connectedcoachinghsp.com.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to learn more about that. First of all, I'd like to learn more and have our listeners get to know Donna. And our businesses are part of our lives, but that's not who we are. And what I'd like to do is find out a little bit about you, your background, and then we'll move into some other fun things.
Wonderful. I'm ready.
All right. So tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, and all that stuff.
Just where I'm from. Well, I'm originally from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, a small New England town close to Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I've been living here in Bend, Oregon for 11 years. I spent much of my life in the San Francisco Bay Area. And yeah, I mean, in terms of who I am as a person, I probably spend more time outside than I do inside in the beautiful area where we live. I love nature. I love hiking. I love paddleboarding, snowshoeing. So I love the beautiful state of Oregon and all that we have at such easy access. I also am a proud mama of a human 21-year-old son, Craig, who's at U of O studying journalism and advertising, and my four-legged Tate, who is my black lab new rescue mix that I just got.
They're so much fun. And we were just chatting before we started recording about our four-legged pets and how awesome they are. So you love the great outdoors. And
Yes.
how did you land in Bend, Oregon?
Oh, well, as I said, I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was a physical therapist. I still am a physical therapist, although I'm not practicing that right now. But so I have a 30 plus year career in physical therapy, working with geriatric medicine and neurological rehab. A lot of complex medical and, people that have had strokes and head injuries and a lot of that really tragic, hard stuff. So I guess I'm saying I'm bringing that in because that's one of the reasons why I came to Bend, is because I couldn't afford to live in the Bay Area, even working, as a full-time professional and then some. So I came to Bend, and my son at that time was 10 years old.
Okay.
And I did not want to raise him in this extremely unusual wealth. I wanted to raise him in a place that was not as materialistically focused and just more a sense of community. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons. So financial reasons moved here, that I consciously wanted to raise my son in a place that wasn't so motivated by success in a business type way. And yeah, that's
Oh, and that's admirable. I've moved more times than I'll ever care to count. And moving in general is a big step, especially it sounds like you were a single mom. And,
yes.
and based on our podcast name, Courage, Confidence, Connections, I'm
Mhm.
curious how courage has played a part in your life so far, and go back as far as you'd like. Just share with us. I like to encourage people because sometimes it takes more than what we think we've got to make big steps. So, yeah, can you elaborate a little bit on how courage has impacted your life?
Sure. Yes. Wow. I would say I am absolutely very courageous, adventurous. Yeah, courage. Well, number one, I chose to have my son on my own.
Oh,
So, and shout out to Single Mothers by Choice organization. There are many of us that our lives don't turn out in the traditional way of having a family, and I made the decision to have my son on my own. So I think that is definitely the most courageous thing that I've done. Um, I also, at the age of barely 18, living in Cape Cod, Massachusetts area, I moved to California on my own. I had never been on a plane. Um, so I had a friend that her and her family moved to Massachusetts from California in high school, and she was not having Massachusetts. She said, Donna, you are a West Coast girl. You need to come to California with me. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to graduate from high school first. And so, yeah, so that's such a sweet story. And honestly, if I reflect on that, Janice, it's like, boy, that was courageous. Like I don't even think I realized how courageous it was. Well,
mhm.
obviously having a child on my own too, but having never been on a plane, I worked in a job making cables for bowling alleys that my father got me this job to save up enough money for the summer for airfare to fly to California for and meet my friend. And she and I and her boyfriend, who I had grown up with since kindergarten, the three of us rented a house together and we did this adulting. We were like, oh my, we had three jobs each. We didn't know how do we pay the bills. And so that's a courageous thing.
Oh, yeah.
Sure that there's more, but having a child of my own and moving to California on my own, barely 18, putting myself through college as a physical therapist.
True.
Um, yeah, lots of courage for sure.
No kidding. Were there times that you just wanted to throw in the towel and say, look, this is too much. I don't think I can do this. Did you bump into those obstacles or walls of, oh, I just can't push through anymore?
Um, you know, Honestly, the way in which I have come up against those obstacles is more like softening, slowing down for myself and trying to not be so, well, hyper vigilant. We were talking a little bit about trauma earlier. I come from a background with a lot of childhood trauma. I work with people with trauma, and hypervigilance is such a common coping mechanism. And so, that hypervigilance and doing everything right, everything myself, that was something I didn't even realize, Janice, that I was in it. It took many decades to, lot of life experiences that were hard, including a health compromise and that helped me wake up and soften. So I'm proud to be courageous. And I would definitely say that, I call it like my warriorness, but to soften in that, like vulnerability is really the biggest courageous thing I can be and mentor that. And so I'm grateful and I see the gifts in having an experience of trauma in my life and that hypervigilance. It helped me get through physical therapy school. It helped me raise a child on my own. It helped me put myself, whatever, buy my own home, move, very, very self-reliant. Um, but honestly, it's been more of a waking up to the importance of softening, whether that's as simple as asking for help or sharing my own vulnerability and not trying to be that pillar of strength.
Mhm.
Um, and also, just to name that, I think, that survivability that when we're in that courageous zone is, there are periods of that are necessary. So I just want to say that, like raising young kids and you're working full time. I mean, you have to be courageous and push through. And in physical therapy school, I felt that, but it's in raising my son on my own, working full time, as well as seeing private clients at the same time, and doing all of that. But that the softness is really important to find. But just naming to your listeners, it comes developmentally. It's the ebbs and flows of life.
It is. And some of us take longer to learn that than others. And we just go from one hardship to the next, to the next, to the next, not realizing that if we just sometimes there's a release that has to take place that is hard to let go of. And what I've experienced over my life is when I just back up or sit down and, okay, if I take a few deep breaths and let the dust settle, I can
Mm,
handle this differently. But you can't think clearly when you're all agitated. And I've been around a lot of traumatic brain injuries with people, and I've had a lot of experience. That's my story. That's not for today. However, what it did teach me is that you've got to flow with life versus fight it. And
yes,
that is that's where the name of this podcast came in, is learning to have courage, but also knowing when to let go.
sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, little by little, like at our own pace. And that just brings me to, having to have a career change as a result of my health compromise and coming into my coaching practice. And then also teaching mindfulness and self-compassion and meditation. And, just hearing you talk about, the slowing down, letting the dust settle. It takes all of us our own time and pace, but to really learn how to trust our capacity to pause in stillness, to feel what is arising, and to be able to have that belief in our own nervous system's capacity to digest and integrate. So as a PT, I specialized in neurological and neuroscience I love it. And that's, in today's career that I'm, working with coaching and teaching, I do a lot with people with, teaching them about the different phases of our nervous system. And, that when you said, Janice, something about like, we can't, first of all, when like we're in this threat or fight or flight, that's sympathetic, we can't make decisions. We can't think. We can't, it's the survivor mode has taken over. So that's one of the many gifts of mindfulness meditation and self-compassion, is learning how to slow down and just not be so afraid of ourselves. And, to name that, for me, my whole life was running away from myself. I did not know it. I looked picture perfect. I had, a great job, great friends. I was always taking bike trips and hiking trips and social, but there was this underlying emptiness that I couldn't be alone. Like this was pre-computer time. If I was home alone, I would call one of my friends and we'd be on the phone at night.
Mm.
Like I needed to fill that time because I didn't even know what I was afraid of. So I'm sharing this with you for those that listen, that just to validate, for many of us, we did not learn how to be with our own feelings, sensations, thoughts without running away from them and oppressing them and doing all kinds of maladaptive choices with that. But it took me, I mean, and as I said, on the outside, it looked like I had this fabulous life, which I did, but boy, do I have a lot more peace in my life now that I can be with myself and and it's very peaceful. And I know how to be with fear, sadness, grief, anger, any of those emotions. I have taught myself through mindfulness, self-compassion, and nervous system regulation practices.
Mhm.
I've taught myself how to do that. And we can learn it. Everybody out there, we really can learn it.
I 100% on board with that. And reading a lot about awareness and listening. I've listened to my body for years, and I'm in tune with that. But lately, in the last, year or two, I have really come to be more mindful of how I'm feeling. And I have to tell on the feelings thing, I'm on that same page because I grew up not knowing how to feel. There's historic stuff behind that. However, I remember him being in a workshop one time on learning to express emotions and feelings, and the facilitator said, "Well, Janice, how do you feel about that?" I just had the complete blank stare of the deer in the headlights. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. And that was the first time. And then, of course, when I read about it later in his book, I threw the book across the room. I didn't, I didn't get it. I didn't get it because it was confusing to me. And to anyone that might hear this, it's
Mhm.
okay to feel confused when you haven't learned how to feel. It's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And meeting ourselves with such tenderness and compassion for that, because that was a way that was intelligent to protect ourselves for a long period of time. And, just having gratitude for that, not to dismiss the experiences that we had, but, we learned that for a reason. We learned that because we had to, and then we can unlearn it and find new ways.
Exactly. Exactly. I like the expression, take the learning and leave the rest. What,
Yeah.
yeah, what can you learn out of this experience? And most of us, it takes more than once, twice, or sometimes 10 times because human beings, we can be very stubborn. Well, so can animals. But however, it's okay to feel what you feel. It's been very difficult to learn to feel. And
Mhm.
um, not unlike yourself, I didn't know how to be alone, be by myself. I wanted to be by myself, but I would watch TV, do this, that, or the other to occupy my mind so I didn't have to listen to myself. As that a lot of things you probably run across in the line of work that you do. Would you like to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I think first of all, to validate and just what you said, I agree, Janice. I mean, it's very challenging to feel, you know, the emotions and to navigate through the life experiences that we are wired and made to be able to be with. Um, but I just, yeah, I really want to validate for anybody out there that it it starts wherever you're at. So when I work with people I work with a lot of focus on being with difficult emotions. And when I say the word difficult, I just want to take that away because if we're recognizing it as difficult, what do you think our mind and our system is already going to have resistance right away? So I might use the word challenging emotions and treating these emotions of like grief, sadness, deep disappointment, anger, all of those things that we'd rather just push away. I help people see their value and their lessons and to treat them the same as joy, happiness, bliss, all of that. We have a system that we can, pendulate through so many different emotions. So, yeah, like an example, like for fear, like I work with people, with fear and anxiety and just helping them and with me witnessing and guiding, just, can you be with the raw emotion of the fear, staying and feeling it in the body, staying out of the narrative, out of the content, out of the story, and being with that raw, presentation in our bodies. And I say, maybe, let's try that for one breath,
Yeah.
or maybe 3 breaths,
Mhm.
or maybe 10 minutes. And then there's a little example I use that, okay, it's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, right? We just think it's so scary. And another thing for your listeners,
Yeah.
please, if you feel like facing some of these really challenging emotions, if you feel like they're going to kill you, I don't mean that literally, but I know what that's like. We feel like we're going to go into collapse. Like they are so physiologically frightening for us.
Yes.
That's why I really, really talk to people about not pushing, honoring your own timing. And so, with the fear piece, we'll say, okay, so today you might be with the fear with your back turned toward it, and
Mhm.
just, hello, fear. And there's a whole process I do, but, hello, fear, what would you like me to know? And then, so maybe you do that for 2 breaths one day. And on another day, you turn sideways and you look over, you know, and you say, hello, fear. I'm afraid of you, and I'm practicing not being afraid of you so I can hear you. And
Mhm.
then the next day, maybe you face forward. So, from your back turn to turning sideways to facing forward, from 1 breath to 3 breaths to 10 minutes. I'll have people put a timer on when they're, as a practice to themselves. Sit with an embodiment practice. If that feeling is there, set a timer. And then you let it go. That's it. Okay, I had my 3 minutes with my fear. I'm going to put that aside today. And then that is integrating through the nervous system and changing those neural pathways. So the next time fear comes in our lives, our nervous system says, wow, I know how to do this.
Mhm.
I can do this. If Donna will just let go of the content and the narrative and just let me do my thing, then we're going to get through this in a lot more peaceful, optimal way. So anyway, that was a long example.
Oh, it's a very good example. I've got not the similar one, but someone I was working with recently. What we were discussing, apparently I did hit a pretty significant trigger, and in our discussion, and in that discussion, she was really sobbing, and she said, "I hate to cry. I hate to cry." Well, I know what that feels like too. It makes you feel weak, but I had an experience several years ago where I experienced that deep, deep sobbing and the loss of a pet. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but that deep sobbing came from years of holding it back. It wasn't
Yeah,
just crying for the one thing. And what we have to realize is our body has stored so many of these emotions and
yes.
triggers. I didn't think they were good things, but they're very good things if you recognize them, right?
And I love that you put a positive spin on triggers. Well, because that's one of my things too, is labeling and pathologizing things are not helpful. And so even the word trigger, like it's, what I would say, to you or someone else, what is, when someone says I was triggered by that, well, what does that look like for you?
Mhm.
Because I can have my bias about it. I think most of us think of trigger as, oh God, we don't want that. That's bad. But you just opened up that awareness of the importance. A trigger or whatever expression is coming is showing up to be seen and heard and integrated and held and given a voice. It is not there to make your day miserable. It is trying to show up as an opportunity for awareness in what you are not able to, to have not able to integrate and what needs a little more of your attention. It's shining a light on you know, what is hard for us to look at and where we need more practice.
Absolutely. This is I love these types of discussions because there are people who will hear this that they may think, oh, I just don't want to open those wounds. And I've recently lost a sibling, and,
Mm,
you know, there's a family member that just doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to
mm,
experience it. I totally understand that. I understand. However, if you don't, it's going to show up somewhere. It's going to show
yes,
up and it's going to manifest. It could be anger, whatever, all those stages of whatever grief.
yes, yes,
It will come out, and you never, and the worst part is, I believe you never know when it's going to hit you, but if you're not aware of it, you're going to think you've got a bigger problem, which is, I've just got an anger problem. Well, maybe not, because it's
yes,
something
yes.
in and triggered you. And I would advise people to be aware of what you're feeling. Right. I journal, and
Mm-hmm,
I have
mm-hmm,
decades. It's important to acknowledge, and like you're doing with people, fear. Yeah, that is
mm-hmm.
a great exercise that
Yes,
can walk through. But in a culture like ours, it's so easy. And the movie, The Squirrel, to be distracted. Squirrel.
yeah,
It's so easy to be distracted. Oh, I can get distracted. And I even journaled that this morning, and because I was journaling and I was distracting myself with this and that and the other. And I went, okay, squirrel moment, are we done?
yes, yes, yes. Squirrel moment. I say that myself.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it can be fun at times, but sometimes it's hard to focus.
yes,
There may be no medical reason for it, except we're in a society and a culture that is hitting us right and left and right and left.
yes,
And
yes,
yeah, mind what you pay attention to. I mean, we're not, I mean, of course, Tate, your wonderful black lab mix, a squirrel would be like, ha ha, let's go.
yeah, yeah. Would
But
not
that's
be
the
good.
image that we do the same thing. It's like, oh, oh,
Yes, 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 yes. Well, wow. And Janice, I'm so deeply sorry for the loss of your sibling. Yes.
it was unexpected and a tragedy,
Hmm.
which always makes it harder. So you never know when you're going to fully process.
Sure.
And and it hit all of us. It hits everybody differently, whether you're a sibling,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
a son.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that we can be open and honest. And I like my podcast to be fun and enlightening, but I also like them to be, you know, awareness provoking.
Yes.
Get people
Sure.
to think, get people to,
Sure.
yeah. And you know what? The confidence in the title, this is actually the name of my book too, but the title, having confidence in it, do you know, our listeners, that confidence comes when you step out in courage, when you
Mhm.
dare to do something that you didn't think you could do, you do grow confidence. So you want to speak on
Mhm.
that a moment?
Sure. Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, to try new things, to step out of, to practice confidence. I mean, we can do it in so many little ways. Life presents opportunities daily, but I had something come to me and I lost it. But let me
It'll come back.
see the squirrel thing happened. Um, oh, okay, I got it. I got it back. So to have confidence, one in my experience and working with clients, what I find gives us the most confidence, the most foundational confidence is trusting that no matter what the outcome is, we can meet ourselves with tenderness and compassion and be with whatever emotional expression arises. So that's if we know and have learned how to practice utilizing this amazingly intelligent, finely attuned nervous system, if we can believe in that, then we're more likely to have confidence. We're more likely to take risks.
Yeah.
And also another piece with that confidence that's coming up for me is that like toxic positivity or spiritual bypass or something. Okay. So we can say, it's not like we can say an affirmation, I will be confident today. I mean, personally, I don't find affirmations helpful because they don't feel fully authentic and they feel forced. Now, that's my experience. If they're working for others, go for it. But to be confident is to be authentic and to be real and to share the truth of our experience. And to know, to discern how to do that, when to do that, if to do that, discerning our audience or
Mm-hmm.
our own state of mind. But just, confidence comes with believing and building that foundational self-trust in our own bodies, in our own being with our minds, being with our thoughts, understanding that, having people that show up for us in a loving, supportive way that are there without judgment when we fall down, because that we will fall down. As a matter of fact, confidence, no greater confidence than getting back up again when something has hit us really hard. So, but I believe that without that trust, I mean, me living decades of my life running away from myself and my own emotions, you could say I looked like the most confident person in the world. But underneath there was really, really painful emptiness that I did not know what that was. I did not have the confidence or the skills to trust in my own capacity to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And once I slowly, slowly, slowly built that confidence up, now I'm much more able to take, more discerning risks, try new things, because I know, wow, if I try this and it doesn't work, and even if my feelings get hurt or I feel rejected or whatever, that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's good words of wisdom. And it's important to let people into your life that you feel safe with. And I know you
yes,
deal with safety. So on the connections part of it, it's it's a humbling of just opening your heart and knowing you've got to have some discernment and some wisdom. I'll give
sure,
you that.
sure.
I have had the lack of at times, and it doesn't always bode well. However, with wisdom and just taking that risk, letting others, reaching out to someone, whether it's
Yes,
a professional like we are, or just a friend that you can truly trust. But you got to feel safe. And I know
yes,
what you're saying because I ran away and ran away from myself for years. I liken it to talking about me, the outside being confident. It's like, I've heard that old analogy about the duck. The duck's just calmly floating on the water, but underneath
yeah, yes,
he's
yeah.
really
It's like,
battling. And so, we love to we both love helping people get past these hurdles, whether you go under it, over it, around it, or through it. Just reach out for someone, make a
yes,
connection that you feel,
sure,
and it's important to have your intuition sharpened, and
yes, yes,
that takes time, but you know,
yes,
this is just it's just phenomenal to be able to talk about this topic and not to make it so heavy. Granted, it's not necessarily easy looking back. I'm sure you can go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't see this sooner." But, you know, don't
we
be
weren't ready then.
we weren't ready. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's a big subject right there.
Yes,
A big topic, a very big topic.
yes,
So, Donna, are there any final talking points you want to mention? And then we'll give a little information, and all of your information
sure,
will be at the end of
sure.
the
Well,
chat.
just, tagging on to connections, right? And the importance of, we are wired for interconnectedness. We are human beings that are meant to connect with others.
Yes.
And, but, again, there are times that we do have to discern, you know, whoever we're spending time with, it, am I coming home drained? Am I coming home fulfilled? Am I, paying attention to our experience as we're showing up for people? But just also want to bring in with the connections lastly, because this is in my mind. I just taught a class on when we feel discouraged and overwhelmed and maybe not connected and lonely. One of a great practice that we have access to every day, it is, the practice of witnessing kindness, witnessing people showing up for each other. And what helped some of my students was they realized, oh, I don't have to be the giver or the receiver of the kindness. I can witness it in my outside world and take it in. Yes. So you're in the grocery store, you're watching, a parent with their child, or, whatever. There's so much goodness that is happening around us. And, just like two typical daily examples. One for me was going to the grocery store, and the woman that was checking me out, she made eye contact with me and she said, "Hey, make sure you hold that from the bottom." Kindness. I mean, maybe other people wouldn't be aware of that gesture of kindness. She looked at me, she expressed care. And then, another time going to a coffee shop and the woman saying, "Hey, go over there and get your favorite cup." Like, not the cups are over there,
Yeah.
but just so I'm just naming the awareness of paying attention for interconnectedness with each other, whether we are directly experiencing it or not. It is happening all around us.
It is.
And if we're not paying attention to that, then we're really missing out on seeing that natural way of living that I feel I desire for us to be living in that way. So just naming that connections are invaluable, and that there's subtle energetic ways simply by witnessing that we can feel that as well. Seeing the goodness in people, seeing people show up for each other.
100%. I love that because we're not always the giver or the receiver, but
No,
seeing people just witnessing has a powerful effect. It's
exactly. And not only just like witnessing, and then I'll stop, Janice. I could talk all day, but when I tell people to, witness, like pause for a moment when you see you're witnessing a kind experience of people that you're not even, a part of.
Mhm.
Like, I ask people, stop. If you can, put your hand on your heart. Just breathe it in. That is taking an imprint, a screenshot for your nervous system to be fed the reality of the kindness and the love that is in the world. And so not just bypass it, but pause for a minute, even if not even a minute. That's probably too much for people. If you can, that's great. A breath, hand on your heart. Wow, that is such a beautiful experience. Receiving that, letting it permeate through your system and it's a nervous system regulation experience too. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're definitely in sync with that. How can people reach out to you? And then again, we'll have everything posted at the end. But if you want to give a verbal, uh, just how people can be in touch.
sure. So the best thing is to go to my website, which I mentioned at the beginning, but it's connected. See, Janice, connection signs. Connected.
Over there.
We're going to be the airline people. Connected Coaching, hsp.com. And I also, I have a coaching practice where I work with individuals, I work with couples, I work with families. I also teach mindfulness and self-compassion. Um, you can find that information. I teach with an online program. Many of your listeners may know Tara Brach. She has an online program with Jack Kornfield and two others, and I'm about one of 70 teachers. It's called banyantogether.com, but that'll be on my website. And then I teach a class at Bend Hot Yoga, a mindfulness self-compassion class here in Bend. And please, reach out through the contact on my website for any questions. Setting up a time to have a chat would be welcome. Yes. I thank you, Janice, for bringing this out. It's so important. I feel it in my heart. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for being here, not just for me, but for our audience, whoever watches this, because, and if you're watching it and you have something that you feel like will impact our audience, whoever you are, you
Yes.
feel free to reach out. I'm Janice. Whoops. Yep. See, I did it right. JaniceDebo.com. You can always find me there. And we both are coaches of totally different nature, but we want to help. We do want to help,
Yes.
and we're here.
Yes.
And if we can't
Yes.
help you, we probably can get you to somebody who can.
Absolutely. And there's also resources on my website. That's such a good point. If we can't help people, absolutely, we have resources that we can share with people. I do that all the time. I think that's really important.
And that's part of the connections. So,
Yes. Yes.
so I'm going to wrap it up for us, folks. Again, thank you, Donna, for joining us, Donna Chisholm. And I'm Janice Debo. We're going to sign off now. So stay tuned for the next episode and join us again for Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast.
Thank you, everyone.